happens if you are truthful and if you're clear in your thinking. Anything you see, you will get the answer. It will come clear. These 4 principles actually help you analyze and evaluate. It's really analytical, much more of an engineering paradigm too. But if you look at it, it allows you to go beyond it. It's not the end. It's just a structure that you can use with which you can explore everything. But it's the most comprehensive structure we've been able to find. That's why I ask students, that's what you have to do. Take 15, 20 different case studies and you'll see that this is the elephant. Because that was our whole job, is look at the whole elephant. You heard the story of the blind man, right? 4 blind men. This is also related to the elephant. How many of you know this story? It's an Indian story. Panchatantra. Ancient tales. You know Aesop tales? They're the same as Aesop's fables. So these 4 people went and they were walking along, went to the elephant. And they're trying to figure out. One guy touches the leg and he says, you know, the elephant looks, you know, they were told this is an elephant. So it looks like a tree. You know, trunk of a tree. The other touches the fan, not the fan, the ear. And he says, elephant is like a fan. Another one touches the trunk. What do you think he says that? Huh? It's a rope. Because you can climb up the trunk. Or the tail is a rope, either way. Right? Another one touches the side, and what do you say? It's a wall. So that's what you're getting. You're reading a story about a wall and they call it leadership. They put the word leadership. Was that a book on leadership? It's just attributes of individual applicable to a leader. That doesn't teach you leadership. Sure, through attributes you can study it, but that's not the whole thing. So that was my comment on that. So coming back, now what else do? What other story do we want to do? Sack operative, anger. So you got to sublimate anger, right? For you especially. This man, he would get angry much more than Virat. He would get really angry, loses control, you know, and his wife was really getting fed up. You know, this is like, you can figure this story in India, she couldn't divorce him or do stuff like that, it's out of question, right? So she would handle it and he would kind of abuse her and mistreat her. And she would try to tell him what to do, but you know, like alcoholics do sometimes, they just won't listen. And it just creates a very vicious spiral. So this was getting too much. So one day she found him in a good mood and she told him that there is this sage, you know, who takes care of people, and I know he's cured a lot of people of their anger. So why don't you go and visit him? So he's in a good mood. He says, okay, I will go. So he goes to the sage, and the sage asks him, what's your problem? He says, you know, problem is I get angry and I can't control it, and I just behave in funny ways. I get angry. So what do you get angry at? He said, I get angry at other people doing this or other people. He's always finding some reason or the other, not within on himself, you know. So he says, okay, here's what it is. I want you to take this sack, right? Gives him a sack, a burlap sack. In those days they made it with jute, you know, bori. And he says, every time you get angry, you pick up a stone and put it in the sack. So the guy goes about with the sack. He's dedicated. He's a committed guy. He's going to do it. So he gets angry at his wife and he puts the stone in there. Gets angry at his kids, put the stone in there. His next door neighbor, dog comes into his house and pees. So he gets angry and he puts a stone in there. You know, he's trying to control his anger. So he's not yelling at the neighbor or anything. He's just taking a stone, putting it in there, burning inside. And pretty soon he's walking along, you know, goes to the market, and somebody puts a banana in his way. He slips and he falls. He's getting angry. He picks 2 or 3 stones in there. It's heavy anger, right? What do you think is happening to his sack?
It's getting really heavy.
Heavier and heavier and heavier, right? So he goes back at the end of the day and he says, you know, he says, Guruji, or whatever he calls the sage, he says, Sage, this thing is getting real heavy. He says, yeah, so do you want to carry this all your life? That's what you carry. He says, no, I don't want to carry it. He said, but I thought you were going to show me how to cure anger. All you've given me is a sack of stones, you know, or potatoes, I guess it was. That's why I said sack of potatoes. It was potatoes. Or stones. Stones are heavier, better, more. I think it was sack of stones. Same thing. I must have thought potatoes. Okay, it's heavy. So he says, okay, he says, but all I've done is got this darn sack of potatoes or stones, and you know, and I'm still angry inside. He said, but did you react to people and all? He says, no. He says, okay, now take this sack, I'll show you. He says, but how do I get rid of this? He says, you got to get rid of your anger. Every time you go in, and you can actually not get angry with an interaction, as you enter, you can get rid of one stone. And every time you control it, in other words, you think of the positive things and don't think of blaming others and just cool it, then you will be better off. And you take one stone, get rid of. So he takes the sack the next day, he does that, and he gets rid of some of it. The next day he tries again, and he's actually almost beginning to smile because the sack is getting lighter, right? So he does it, his wife is happy, friend neighbors are happy. So what happened to this guy, you know? He's improving, right? Because he's thinking about his anger, you see. So he goes and he finishes the thing, he's got this empty sack, he's walking around with the sack. His wife says, what the dickens are you doing? He says, well, you know, he told me to take this and get rid of it. He says, but you got rid of all the potatoes, all the stones, right? So what do you can, she says, go to him and tell him now, you know, that you did it. So what do you do? So he goes to the sage and he says, you know, so now I got rid of all the potatoes, right? He says, now you got rid of the depository of the anger, right? Now you can get rid of the sack, which means you don't need to be able to put your anger in there, you just don't have it, get rid of it.